Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons through the lens of the fantastic 5 out of 5 star film, 2024 film, Lionsgate film, by the creators of The Chosen, the film, the best Christmas pageant ever, and starring Judy Greer, and starring Lauren Graham, and starring Pete Holmes. And what I want to talk about, and so this film has a lot to teach every dungeon master and every dragon master and every dragon designer. We'll define dragon designer some other time, but I'm just going to leave it there on the shelf right now. All right, so what is this film about, and why is that important to every dungeon master? This film is about breaking tradition. So the best Christmas pageant ever is about a Christmas pageant that is that there has been a long tradition of one woman has been running the show for like 20 years. She picks the same Mary every she picks the same Mary every time. She picks the same Joseph every time. The same kid get cast as sheep every time. The same 3 wise men get cast. And so this entire film is about breaking tradition, and it's a powerful film, and I highly recommend it to every dungeon master and every dragon master. There's a lot to learn here. And the biggest one is, and one of the biggest things in the film, there's so many beautiful messages in the film, is it's time to break tradition. It's time to break tradition. So what tradition do we need to break in Dungeons & Dragons? What are the traditions we hold on to that have no value or negative value? So I'm just going to throw one out right now. Touching other people's dice. This is a disgusting, selfish, horrible tradition, right? Like, oh, you don't touch my dice, man. It's not for you. Oh, you can't. Oh, you didn't bring dice, right? One, many players will not say share my dice, right? They actually bring a separate pair of dice for the other person so that other person will never touch their dice, right? Now, why is this a problem? Well, it's a problem for a lot of reasons. One, it's permissioned selfishness, right? So one, that it's a bad tradition, right? So one, I think we should abandon this tradition so that new people who come in don't make this fatal mistake. And honestly, I'm not kidding. I would not be surprised if 10,000 new players have been shooed off by coming in and they're like, oh, look at your pretty dice. And then one person very politely says, oh, I'm sorry, Esther. You really can't touch other people's dice. It's not appropriate. So as it's a tradition among Dungeons & Dragons players that we never touch anybody else's dice. It's disgusting. It is completely permissioned selfishness, permissioned abominableness, right? And we do this all throughout our American culture. Like, oh, you have this horrible, disgusting selfishness, this prejudice, this unbelievably horrible monster aspect of your humanity, and we just ignore it and we permission it. We don't even ignore it. We permission it. Right? And this is a terrible, terrible, terrible tradition that is genuinely costing us as human beings. It is costing us as human beings, right? So how is it costing us? And where does the cost come from, right? So basically, the other thing is there's a whole bunch of dice mechanics, things that we could do if we allowed one class, one species, any aspect of our player character to allow dice to be passed to someone else from your own dice pool, right? We could make it so that each person, each Dragon Master had their own unique dice. We could also make it so that they have their own class dice, their own species dice, and then they got intermixed, right? We could build mechanics around dice color, around dice passing, around dice vaulting, right? But we never, ever do it because of this disgusting, horrible tradition. It's selfishness personified. People who say, if you ever sat at a table and somebody said, don't touch my dice, they suck as a human being. They are selfish and repugnant, and they have work to do, right? To improve themselves, to grow as a person, to transform and be a less repugnant, selfish jerk, right? This tradition has to die, right? And it's bad as the tradition of stereotyping and casting based on preferences and internal clicks, exactly the way it was shown in the 2024 best Christmas pageant ever, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.